A very good evening and a warm welcome. It gives me great pleasure each and every week to host authors, thought leaders, and global speakers. Today, I have a gentleman who actually is all three. He's an author of the book, The Rule of Five. He's a global CEO, and he's also a thought leader. Please join me in welcoming Paul Dupuis, CEO of India, and now in transition to being the chairman and CEO of Randstad Japan. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Gautam. Greetings. Good evening from Tokyo.
An absolute pleasure to have you with us today. First and foremost, congratulations on your book. You launched it a few months back, but I've been seeing great coverage online, seeing you moderating events, seeing you in fireside chats, and the book seems to be making its mark across the globe. So congratulations on that.
Thank you, Gautam. Thanks for your support along the way. It's been quite a journey.
Excellent, excellent. So we're going to have a great conversation, and then we'll even invite some questions from the audience with us. We are live on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and Facebook. So the first and foremost question is asking you is, what is the purpose that drives you as a leader, Paul?
Well, and that's a wonderful question, especially right now, Gautam. What we've experienced over the past more than 1 year has really brought purpose to the front. I think for all of us, we started to think about the why. And something that has guided me for many years is this, let's call it a mantra. It's a saying that I repeat to myself often. A full life is not only about doing well, it's about doing good. So do well and do good. So I work hard to excel in what I do and also help those around me shine and be the best version of themselves, but also try to do good for the world in some way.
Fantastic, fantastic. I knowing you personally, I always say every successful leader has an awesome morning routine. So I'm intrigued and would like you to share what's Paul Dupuis' morning routine, because to me, the way you start your day definitely sets the tone for the day ahead, because what happens each day is not necessarily in our control, but what is in our control is how we start our day. I'd love you to share your morning routine, Paul.
Absolutely. And I write about this in my book, as you know, Gautam, that all of the high performing leaders across arenas, whether it's sports, business, the arts, politics, and beyond, all share a common trait. They start the day off early and they start the day off in a healthy way. So I wake up at 5 a.m. I don't need an alarm clock. Maybe part of it is just getting old. I'm waking up earlier and earlier. So I'm up at 5 a.m. I guess you could say I'm in the 5 a.m. club, as per Robin Sharma's book. And I start the day with some exercise. I love to walk. Walking is not only exercise for me, it's my thinking time. It's my decompressing time. It's a time when I dream. I ask the big question, what if, what's next, and so on. So I try to walk 10,000 steps a day in the morning before breakfast. And then I come back and I read the newspaper, of course, have a coffee and just kind of clear my head, look through my calendar for the day, set some clear goals as well, objectives for the day in terms of outcomes, what I want to achieve through the day, but also being guided by that mantra I said earlier about do well and do good. So it's about a healthy start, an early start, make full use of the day.
Fantastic. No, thank you, Paul. I'd like to also acknowledge and appreciate that seeing your morning posts and your Monday mantras that you do from Bangalore in the past really inspired me. The last 7 weeks, I've really what I call self-love activities, whether it's walking, meditation, yoga, reading, or journaling every morning for the last 7 weeks. And it's made a tremendous difference on my mind, body, soul in that sense as a leader. So thank you for being sort of contributing to me being inspired to take action in that morning routine.
Well, hopefully one day soon we can walk together. You come over to Tokyo, I'll come and visit you in India. But it's a great way to start the day. And it takes, the theory is it takes 15 days to create a habit. And if you do something 15 days in a row, it becomes habitual. And I'm sure you find the same thing, Gautam. You wake up in the morning, you don't have to think about it, you just go. And it's a wonderful thing. I encourage everybody to do, especially right now. Go for a walk.
Fantastic. Thank you. So you moved from Japan to India and now very recently back to Japan. Can you share some light into this journey that you've taken?
It's been an incredible adventure. First, let me say to everyone who's watching in India, and I know there are a lot of friends and colleagues who are there, thinking about you all. My heart is in India right now, especially the current situation. So many friends and family and colleagues have been touched by COVID. So hold firm, hold strong. I was in Japan in and out several times. In fact, I've been in Japan, I guess, 23 years and counting now. This is my 4th stint in Japan, believe it or not.
Wow.
But just over 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to move from Japan, where I was managing director here at Randstad Japan, and I moved to India. I'd never been to India before. It was my first time to India. I didn't know a single person in India, but I was on a mission to take the wheel and steer the ship Randstad India through some choppy waters at that time. But I must say it was an absolutely incredible adventure, of course, on the business front, but also on the personal front. I discovered India is such a diverse country and fascinating in many levels, but certainly inspiring. And I made a lot of great friends along the way, including, of course, Gautam. I got to know you. And I discovered, of course, as you know, ice hockey in India. And that's a bit of a separate story, but what a wonderful experience. And I know, by the way, many people in Ladakh, in the Himalayas, are watching right now. So to everybody in Ladakh, Julay, can't wait to get back to see you, hopefully in January, to play some hockey up in the Himalayas.
You mentioned Ladakh, and I know you visit there as a ritual, I believe, every January, is it?
Yeah, we go every January. It's part of something that was started, the Indo-Canada Friendship Hockey Tournament, but it's since evolved into much more than hockey. We do some volunteering off the ice. Climate change is a real issue in the Himalayas, so Randstad and myself personally, we've come on board to support organizations and schools who are taking action to fight climate change, raise awareness, and so on. We're partnering with the United Nations Climate Change on this. And so, yeah, it's become a cause that I'm very passionate about, so much so that I plan on going back every year now, every winter, to spend time with friends in Ladakh on and off the ice.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Paul. As we know, a lot of leaders, not only in India, but across the globe, are facing a lot of challenges. I mean, the speed of change has increased more than ever. Technology needs to be embraced by leaders. Can you share possibly a leadership challenge that you've experienced and that created a transformation in that experience? Anything that you could share from your wealth of experience?
I've been very fortunate to live and work across many borders, cultural and of course geographical, and living in Japan for many years, which is a very different and unique culture. I lived in Singapore for a while, but have worked in mostly Asia Pacific countries. But I'm also part of a very global organization. Randstad is the #1 HR staffing and recruiting company in the world now in 38 countries. I'm also part of some key global projects and initiatives where we communicate across borders. So again, very fortunate to have done that. But I think one of the biggest challenges I've experienced certainly was arriving in India 4 years ago in 2017. And that was right after demonetization was announced. And it was a word I didn't know, I'd never heard of, when Prime Minister Modi literally pulled cash out of the economy, a real bold move. And then shortly afterwards, GST was introduced. So I came to steer a ship through adversity and ambiguity, and I had no frame of reference. And so the first thing I did was I went on a roadshow and I met members of the team across the four corners of India. So I spent the first 60 days just meeting with people and asking them the same big questions. What's great about this organization? What do you love about it? And what needs to be improved? What's missing? For us to go from good to great, what's the trigger in your mind? And I met over 100 people across the organization, every corner in terms of roles and functions and so on. So for me, the first thing was to listen first. You know, the old saying, my dad used to say, 2 ears and 1 mouth. And for me, that was very important, to resist the urge to tell, but rather to focus on listening. And that helped me kind of get a pulse check of the organization, of the people, of course. And then from there, start to create a strategy together with the team. And here we are now, one of the top performing countries in the world of Randstad, thanks to a team that has come on board on the mission to raise the bar, to go on that journey from good to great. So I would say the experience in India absolutely was one of the biggest challenges I've ever faced. Learned so much, and I take those lessons with me now here in Japan onto my next challenge.
Fantastic. No, thank you very much for sharing that, Paul. When you mentioned listen first, it prompts me to say, one of the greatest coaches always ask great questions and listen first. You've been had the pleasure of being coached by the #1 leadership coach in the world, Marshall Goldsmith. You also have a great leadership team who are going through a coaching experience. From your personal experience, what is the value of coaching for senior leaders, for those organizations who are considering having their senior leaders go through a sort of coaching journey? What are your thoughts from your experience?
Well, I think the value is priceless when you talk about coaching. Now, coaching by nature requires a couple of things to really, let's say, make impact. It requires the person who's being coached to be willing to be coached. And, again, I've been fortunate through my journey in participating in different, senior leadership and executive education programs in different universities that I've had experience with coaches, but I certainly didn't take full advantage in the past. I think it's about the spirit of empty your cup when you begin the engagement with a coach. It's about arriving ready to learn, ready to look in the mirror, ready to confront those brutal facts about yourself, your strengths and your weaknesses, by the way. It's not only about what you're not good at, it's also about identifying what you really love, what your passion is, what your natural brilliance is. A coach doesn't give you the answers. And I think it's also important to come in a coaching engagement with that understanding that the answers are actually right there in the room, and the coach helps you find the answers. I'm a big believer in the value of having a good coach, and I would also add the right coach. In the case of Marshall Goldsmith, let's face it, the #1 coach in the world. As Marshall taught me, surround yourself with the masters, and one day you can work towards mastery yourself. And I've been so impacted by my sessions with Marshall. Now, having said that, I go back to what I said earlier about one of the roles of a leader is to ensure that people around him or her can shine, can grow, become the best versions of themselves. And so, I had such a great experience in the interactions with Marshall that I sat down with my team, my leadership team, and we discussed how we could then engage with Marshall and some of his team, Himanshu, Saxena, and others to share in the experience that I had. So we've since done that. And I have to tell you that in terms of motivation, the team, of course, is thrilled to be part of this, to be connected with the Marshall Goldsmiths community, but also I see growth in them. And it's not growth for the sake of growth. It's about driving outcomes. And so what we do know is that those who embrace coaching and organizations that embrace the spirit of coaching tend to be organizations that outperform. So the proof is in the pudding. I highly recommend looking at getting coaching for yourself as a leader, but also for your team members.
Fantastic. So thanks for sharing, Paul. Really appreciate that. So, Paul, what most people don't know is that you had very humble beginnings on your first trip to Asia back, as you said, in 1990. And it has something to do with a park bench, I heard. Can you tell us more?
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah. Well, the true story, and I'm going to write about it in my next book. I'm actually doing it right now. But so in 1990, I was 22 years old. Through university, in order to pay my tuition, I worked at Chrysler, the automotive factory, on the assembly line as a welder. So I saved up my money, and the extra money I had left over, I bought a plane ticket to Osaka, Japan. And of course, I knew nothing about Japan, I knew nothing about Asia, but I went to the public library. This was pre-internet days, and I found a book on Japan, Lonely Planet guidebook. And it talked about Japan, and I was really into the martial arts, of course, so I wanted to go to Japan. And it talked about the city called Osaka, where people were very friendly. It was a merchant town. It said people love to eat, they love sports, they speak their mind. So I thought I need to go there. It reminds me of my own hometown in Canada, Windsor, Ontario. So I arrived with a backpack. My life savings, about everything that was left over, was about $300 Canadian. I didn't know anybody. And so I found a park bench in a park in downtown Osaka, and I slept there that night with my backpack as my pillow, and I planned to stay in Japan 6 months. And here we are 31 years later, and I'm still here in the Asia Pacific region.
Wow, phenomenal. Thanks for sharing that, Paul. Also, from your book, you talk about the days in the Army cadets, and you introduce a sort of powerful model called STOP. I am sure there's an acronym to this meaning. Could you share some insights into that with the audiences today?
Sure. Well, first of all, I really believe that everything we've done in our lives comes with us. And so if you can take lessons from your journey and apply them today, then, that's also part of having a full life, right? So I call them golden nuggets when I write about it in the book. But yeah, back in my teens, I was in the Army Cadets in Canada, and I had the opportunity. I was chosen to go on a program called Outward Bound. And Outward Bound is a global organization. We're basically designed to push you to your limit, physically and mentally, in a safe environment. And I did the military version of Outward Bound, which had a little bit of a rougher edge to it. But it was basically 8 weeks where we lived in the forests on an army base up in northern Ontario in Algonquin Park, and quite a beautiful part of Canada, but quite raw as well. Lots of bears and moose and other animals living in the forests. And they challenged us with what they called missions. And there was one called Mission Solo, where they woke us up in the middle of the night, blindfolded us, and put us on the back of a truck and took us into the dark. And they were basically simulating a survival exercise that you needed to survive. And so they dropped us off one by one, alone, for 3 days with no food and water and just some basic gear, and said, see you in 3 days. It was all about survival. Now, before doing this, and of course we didn't know it was coming, a couple of weeks earlier, we had a classroom session on how to handle ambiguity and adversity. And then it came back at that moment. And they taught us STOP, S-T-O-P. And I think it's very relevant for leaders right now. And I got to tell you, I'm using it in the current situation over the past year. S means stop. Take a deep breath. Collect your thoughts. T is think. Look around. Observe. Look at your environment. Look at the threats. Look at the opportunities. And then P is plan. When you go through stop, think, observe, plan, a remarkable thing happens. You don't panic. You make logical decisions. And something that's very important as well, and I use this every day now, especially leading through ambiguity and adversity, is you never make permanent decisions about a temporary problem. And so STOP is a powerful model for all leaders: stop, think, observe, plan. I encourage you to give thought to this whenever you're facing an uncertain situation. And as leaders, we face it every day. It's not just COVID. It was before COVID. It will be after COVID. But to follow that model, STOP, is quite powerful, and it's helped me along the way.
Fantastic. No, what it reminisces in my mind, I use the word pause quite often, is about just press pause, just to slow down, take time to reflect, appreciate, and sort of review and then strategize. Sometimes as leaders, we're busy being busy, but we know, as you and I know, that it's very important to stop, to pause, and to take sort of stock of where we are today, and then review the strategy with our team as things are evolving each and every week and each and every month in today's fast-changing world as well. So thanks for sharing that, Paul. Monday mantras, for those who follow Paul, every Monday morning you share a mantra, and that's something that you really inspire each of us who do follow you. Could you share a couple of mantras whilst we're on our sort of conversation today that you'd like to share with the audience?
Sure. Well, if you visit my Instagram page, you'll see that every Monday I have a Monday mantra, as Gautam said, and I typically do it out on my walks. I find that that's where I get ideas, and mantras as I've defined them, and of course in Indian culture, mantra can come from Hinduism, and they can be verses that you recite, of course, in Buddhism as well, and even in Christianity and so on. But for me, these are phrases that inspire, that motivate, that help you stay focused in our current day, be mindful, to be engaged. And I have a few, some that were handed down to me, some that are quite profound, and some that are actually pretty light, and again, motivating. So the first one is, it's very important right now, something my mom and dad taught me. They faced a lot of challenges in their lives, and I know I've seen it a lot more and more in recent months, and that is, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. And my mom used to say that on her most difficult days, and when she was battling a disease, and she used to take a deep breath, no matter how bad it was, and with a big smile say, this too shall pass. And she genuinely believed it. So I think it's important that we move forward that spirit, because what we know over history is that all crises come to an end. Since the beginning of time, every crisis that has ever come to this world has come to an end. And that's true for us as individuals. That's one. I'm an ice hockey player and a big fan of ice hockey. I grew up, on ice skates. And so I borrow a lot of phrases or mantras, I guess, from ice hockey. Here's one. In ice hockey, we say that, keep moving your legs and good things will happen. So for me, that's really about, no matter what, always be moving forward, even if it's small incremental steps. The moment you stop moving your legs, you stop progressing. So it's so important to just keep moving the legs. There's one more ice hockey one, which is great, from Wayne Gretzky, the legendary, he's the Sachin Tendulkar of ice hockey. And he said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So take the shot. Take the shot. Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. Those all three were absolutely awesome. When you say this too shall pass, my father used to say, he said, we talk about in the negative times that, like today's COVID, this too shall pass. So don't worry or have fear in that sense. But also when we're having huge success, also not to let it to have an ego or to just be complacent because you think things are, so also be grounded in that sense. So I really, really resonate with this too shall pass.
Great point.
And in terms of action, is like emotion creates emotion. At the end of the day, we need to also keep moving, and it's just the step by step. Not always doing things at fast, but to move in some level. Even the baby steps count; they all add up.
Absolutely, and I think, Gautam, we learned that over the past year too, right? Small steps,
oh, yeah.
and you doing your walk every day. I'm sure you're noticing the cumulative difference in your overall, physical health. But also mental, emotion, you just feel better. And so a little bit each day, that's it, just a little bit. And even if it's reading, maybe writing, studying a new language, or going for a walk.
Absolutely. I very much cherished those mornings and really enjoyed the last 7 weeks. So really encourage everyone to make your mornings count, because that's your me time, and you really need to invest in yourself so you can be the best version of yourself, not only for your family, for your teams, and for your organization. So that's great. Paul, one final question for you, obviously, before I have a couple of my own questions. But one thing I want to ask you is that, you played many roles over the years, other than the ones we've spoken about. But I heard a rumor about being a taxi driver, and I was saying, is this a rumor, or is there some truth to this rumor? So please do shed some light.
You're taking me way back now, Gautam, to 1987, 1988. So as I mentioned earlier, I was working at Chrysler as a welder on the assembly line. It was pretty hard work, pretty heavy work, physical work. At the same time, I was in intense training for a karate tournament. So I was right into the martial arts, and I was getting ready for this tournament. And I was training hard. I was in a park, and I was practicing some fancy jumping, spinning kicks and so on. And I landed awkwardly, and I dislocated my knee. And I actually had a tear in my ligament in my knee in the ACL. So I crawled my way to the nearest gym. The gym was nearby. So I crawled into the gym, and the trainer put some ice on it and said, you better get to the hospital. I went to the hospital. Sure enough, it was a torn ACL, and it was quite swollen. So I couldn't walk, but I needed to earn money to pay my university tuition. So, obviously I was quite deflated, disappointed. And I was sitting at home thinking, what can I do? What job can I do where I don't have to move around, but I can still, earn some money? And a friend, just on a whim, maybe serendipity, said, hey, I heard that the local taxi company is hiring some part-time students, but you have to get a license. You have to study for the test, and it's quite an intense test. You really need to know the roads, the city. It's pre-internet, so it's all about, you got to know the roads and the quickest way to get from point A to point B. So I thought, why not? So I studied for the test. It was my hometown. I grew up there, so I knew the city pretty well. Took the test, got it, and I was a taxi driver for about 8 months. Then when my knee got better and healed, I went back to the factory. In fact, as I was moving from India to Japan and I was packing up things, it's amazing what comes out when you're moving home, right? So sure enough, that taxi license from 1987 is there. I remember it cost me $20 to get this license in 1987. Yeah.
But there's stories we share today, and we've all had them. And I think it really helps us, have those wonderful experiences from a young age. I mean, so when you're sharing those, it takes me back. I mean, I did the newspaper run in my teenage years.
Yeah.
I even did McDonald's for a whole year, where I played every single role, and tremendous learning as I look back, because you played all the different roles. And at the young age of 16, to learn as you did in that experience that you have in the different roles for such a great organization. So that was something that I fondly remember. But thanks for
Absolutely.
sharing that, Paul. Sometimes these are stories that we don't know behind the scenes. So thank you for that. You've had the pleasure of reading my book, Breaking Bread. When someone says, breaking bread, what does breaking bread mean to you? And perhaps also, how does that integrate and connect with your book, 5Es?
Well, breaking bread is very important to me. First of all, and I love your book, by the way, Gautam, and getting to know you as well. It kind of sums up who you are, right? So what we do know is that since the beginning of time, communities gathered and bonded and became closer over food and drink. And that's across the world. That's borderless. It's a really interesting phenomenon. You can't find a culture in the world that doesn't bond over food and drink. So over a meal, right? There's something about breaking bread together. And I grew up actually, in spite of my name, which is a really good French-Canadian name, I'm actually 3/4 Italian. My mother is pure Italian from near Venice, and my dad was half French, half Italian. So I have a French-Canadian name, but I grew up in quite an Italian home. A lot of Italian culture. And Italian culture is very similar to Indian culture. People love food and love to talk. And so our home happened to be the let's call it the open house. We were the gathering place for all the relatives. So a lot of big family parties and meals in our home. And that's where I learned a lot of lessons just as a little kid, listening to the talk around the table, the uncles and my dad, and of course, my mom and my aunts and so on. So, breaking bread has always been something important to me. I still really love to do it with my own family and friends. In terms of my book, breaking bread, I think, is also a chance to really have meaningful conversations, sometimes light, sometimes deep. And if you look at the 5 Es, first is envision in my book. Next is express.
Envision, yes.
Envision. Next is express. You need to tell the world about your compelling vision. Third one is excite. Push the buttons. Really find out what motivates people to inspire them to get off the sofa and step up and take action. The fourth one is enable. In other words, creating an arena where people can shine, giving them the platform. It's called freedom in the frame. Allowing people to be the best versions of themselves, then becoming a leader as an enabler. And then finally, the 5th E is execute. Make it happen, bring it to life, bring that vision to life for measurable impact, right? And I think breaking bread for me is actually enable. That's the moment where you're really in the game with the team. You're understanding their challenges and the opportunities. You're pushing, you're pulling, you're prompting. To me, that's the breaking bread moment. And it's the moment of truth. And it's tough for some leaders to shift from being the one who knows to the one who's helping others know. And that's what enabling is all about. Sometimes it's about getting out of the way. So I think that for me, that's what breaking bread represents. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing, Paul. Your book, E5 Movement and Breaking Bread, are both available on Amazon.com, Amazon.in for those in India. I highly recommend you get a copy of that book as a leader, and I'm sure you'll really enjoy the great content that we learn from Paul and his wonderful experience for helping us become even better leaders as we move through the challenging times that we currently face, and obviously as we building thriving businesses. So do get a copy. I'd like to take a moment to sort of acknowledge some people who are with us on the live and acknowledging the content. We have Bharat Jitani is saying great on the thing about stop. We have Hamza Fadil. And we have Marcus Rane, our dear mutual friend. Great to see you gentlemen together. All the very best. And we have Hamza saying, how to motivate myself. I'm passionate, but I don't know how to start. And if I start doing things, I can't get them completed. Any thoughts on that? Feel free to share, Paul.
Yeah, wonderful question. And I would say that the hardest part of the journey is starting. That's always the case. I would say the same thing for me when I went to Japan in 1990. Getting on the plane was the toughest part. The rest just kind of happened. So I think the key is to start. And I would even say not to overthink it. So let's say, for example, you want to start getting up early and going for a walk. No need to plan it. Just do it. Start tomorrow. And don't think beyond that. Because what ends up happening is naturally you find your way. You don't need a route, just start walking. You don't need a goal in terms of length that you're going to walk, just walk. And when you're ready to come home, come home. I think the key is to just go And back to what I said earlier, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So, the key is to take that first step. It's always the hardest. It's always the hardest. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just take that first step. And once you do, then the momentum begins.
Fantastic. So take that first step. We have Kumar Rahul saying, good one. Never make permanent decisions for a temporary problem. We have Neeraj Dubey saying, hi, Paul. Hi, Gautam. Aditya Singh, like that. Do well and do good. We have Divya. I'm not too sure what this means, but perhaps waiting eagerly for H.
Oh, HIH is hockey in the Himalayas. That's Divya. He's an interesting character. You should talk to him. He's the captain of the Bangalore Skaters, Roller Skaters Club. And I bumped into them one Sunday morning when I was rollerblading to kind of stay in shape for ice hockey. And fast forward, these guys joined me from Bangalore up in Ladakh in the Himalayas. And they got them on the ice for the first time in their lives. Wonderful experience.
Fantastic. We have a gentleman who's currently reading a book, Badresh Dani. This is Badresh from Mumbai, presently reading Paul's book. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Enjoy the book and take action, and do share the book with your friends and family as well.
Thank you for reading it.
And we have Nafiz Ahmed. Hi, Paul. Hi, Gautam. Fantastic. Great. Just wanted to share some of the people viewing that who've also made some comments. So as we come to the close of our time together, I'd love for you to share a breaking bread story, perhaps. You've had the pleasure of, be it breakfast, lunch, dinner, or even virtual engagements with many thought leaders. If you could share one story that you look back and say that really was a transformational experience, that today, as you look back, that first breakfast, lunch, or meal that you had with someone, be it a team member or a family or a friend, any one story to inspire our viewers today, Paul.
I'm going to give you, I hope you don't mind, I'm going to give you two and I'll keep it real short. So the first one, and this was a trigger for me to write the book. And Gautam, this fellow, his name is Ken Honda. He's a best-selling author in Japan and around the world now. He's written a book called Happy Money, which has become a bestseller around the world. Ken and I have become friends in recent years. And, I would come back when I was in India. I would come back in the New Year holiday and I would meet Ken and we'd have dinner. It was kind of our tradition. And over dinner about 3 years ago, he said to me, we were just having a chat, and he leaned in and he said, Paul, you need to write a book. And no one had ever said that to me before. And I sort of laughed it off. Ken, I'm not a writer. I'm not like you. I'm not a writer. No, you need to write a book. And I want you to start right away. So I thought, okay. He put it on the table over dinner and said, you need to write a book. Well, as life goes, 3 or 4 other people said the same thing to me in the coming weeks, and 3 or 4 people that don't know each other. So again, a bit of fate, maybe serendipity. But Ken really triggered that in me over dinner and got me thinking about it. Then I looked forward to our dinners because I would get his advice. So I would meet him regularly and over dinner, get his advice and learn from him. So that was one example of where the book was really, it came to life because of breaking bread. The other one is, and I would offer this out to everyone, whether you're a leader or not, surround yourself with people who are moving forward, who are action oriented, who are optimists, who are also not afraid to look in the mirror, not afraid to ask for advice. So we actually have a breakfast club. And in Tokyo, I was part of this group, just a small group of people who are all leaders in their own right, different size organizations. But on a Sunday morning, we go and have breakfast. This has been going on for many years now. I've rejoined the Breakfast Club, of course, because I was away in India. And it's just great to sit with fellow leaders and throw ideas around. Because, sometimes as a leader, it's lonely. And when you surround yourself with great people, great ideas come. Jim Rohn said it, you're the average of the 5 people you hang around with.
Absolutely agree.
Surround yourself with people that are on a mission to do well and do good, or whatever your personal mission is, and you grow together.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Paul, for sharing that. We do have a couple of questions, and I'd like to share them as they've come in just as we speak. This is from Shamba. It says, at what age have you realized that you have the trait made to be a leader, and how do you bring focus into one cause when you tend to pay attention to many things and get distracted, I guess? Paul,
This is Chamba, who is up in Ladakh. He is Sonam Wanchak's right-hand man. They work together at Sekmol School, and Chamba is also on the Indian national ice hockey team. He's an amazing ice hockey player and a great man. Chamba, Jule, good to see you. Thank you for the question. I don't think there's one defining moment where you wake up and say, I'm a leader. And by the way, I don't believe there's such thing as a born leader. I also talk about that in the book. I think leadership is a muscle. It's actually a series of muscles that you can decide to build. You can wake up in the morning and choose to build these muscles, but it takes hard work, huh? Just like going to the gym to build muscle, it takes the work. So leadership is a journey. I do think that some people naturally lean into leadership and some people naturally lean away from it. In other words, they don't want to lead and so on. But I would say that anyone can be a leader, but it takes work. It's a lifelong journey. It's a vocation. So make a choice. If indeed it's something that you're passionate about and that you see leadership as a way to make a positive impact on the world and on the people around you, then start working on that muscle.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Paul, for this valuable time that we've had today. I think you've shared a lot into your personal and professional journey, which has inspired the audiences that have been with us today. I see my dad has also made a comment and said, "Hi, Paul. What you shared was highly inspirational. Everything is possible as long as you take action and keep moving." So
thank you, Ramji. I'm sorry we didn't get to go for our walk in Bangalore before I left, but we'll do it one day when it's safe.
Yeah, he shares, I look forward to a walk with you in Japan. So
okay, great. Well, I'll be happy to show you around.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Paul, for your valuable time today. Wishing you all the very best with your new journey in Japan. I'm sure you'll take this new journey to new heights of success, and we'll yet see you in India in time to come. My best wishes and blessings to you and your family. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Gautam, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Stay safe.
Thank you.